So last year, it was maybe a completely different geopolitical scenario. There has been plenty of things that has been changing, including new elections in America, geopolitical uncertainty. So how do you think energy companies are adapting or should be adapting to this change, and which are the shift in priority that you see among the Italian government and maybe the European institutions as well?
So first of all, thank you also for the recognition. And well, I have to say really that things change very, very quickly. And I don't know really how to manage if it is worse now or some years ago. So, but for sure, things are changing. Yesterday, during our presentation to the Parliament, I point out that uncertainty is probably the main issue and the main feature that we have to deal with in this period. And uncertainty is always for the companies, for everybody, a great problem to deal with, because of course you try to hedge your position, your situation, your supply at your best, but when it comes out that you have to check if some declaration from the US administration changes something during the night, it's always quite difficult. But also, I remember, just to give a point, I gave my speech of yesterday to the print on Friday morning, and Friday night started a new issue that changed dramatically the situation in the Middle East. So, we are quite in a period of probably 5 years in which we have developed some kind of attitude in managing these quick changes. The regulation, for example, tried to introduce a lot of flexibility in the system, in the decisions, in order to understand how things are moving as fast as possible, and try to understand what kind of decision could decrease the risk level of the system. And I think this is probably the key thing to take in consideration. I mean, how do you can manage the risks that the companies and the system faces? And probably the first thing you have to recognize that the electric system, for example, is changing dramatically from the point of view of the risks, because from a system that was basically built on the idea of the OPEX cost, you are moving to a CAPEX situation, in which the investments and the investments in advance, the capacity and the possibility to hedge the positions in the average term is probably more relevant than following the evolution of the commodity cost. And this is, of course, a real change, a real dramatic change, because changes the time scale. When you are dealing with a system that is OPEX-based, you can somehow, of course, you are exposed to the fluctuations of the commodity during the long period, but somehow you can follow it with some kind of responses. Instead, when you are CAPEX-based, the moment of the decision of the investments, the moment in which you decide to put the money, the moment in which the financial infrastructure that you are building take the final decision, it's relevant, and even the regulation should be able to understand this and to try to focus on understanding the key moments in which the final decision of investment is taken, and how you can hedge the financial position that you're taking. I mean, I think it's written more or less everywhere. The electric system, the energetic system is more and more becoming a financial one. And so you must be able to deal with it, of course, with the technical and industrial considerations, but the financial ones are becoming even more important. This is probably a point in which also the regulators in the broad sense, should be able to work a little bit better and with much more detail.
There has been maybe a change on the European energy policy. European energy policy may be evolving towards a more of a pragmatic approach, if I can say this, versus a previous more ideological approach. There is an intense debate.
Yeah. I am more or less, I agree more or less with this, because it is true that things are changing, and could be that we had in the past some ideological hopes, probably, more than... I think more that the idea is that we are entering a reality check. I mean, when you move from the ideas and from the expectations written on the paper and you move... I always remember a joke during a discussion that was discussing about power grids, and I said it's time to move from PowerPoint to power lines, because it makes a difference. And I think that we are entering in a situation in which things come to the real situation that you have to deal with for the exploitation of the solutions. And so I think the basic ideas can be stable, and the need for the decarbonization is not an ideological need. I mean, you have to recognize that the economics of not decarbonizing the economy are worse than the other ones. So you have to focus more pragmatically on how to do the things, not on the opportunity or not to do the things. And this, I think, a good point to move on.
There has been an event of significant disruption in a large European country very close to me, and there has been a significant blackout. How do you think are the lessons to be learned from that event? What is happening with the design of the energy sector in Europe that is leading to some unprecedented events?
First of all, I would like not to enter in the line of those that are giving the answer when they not even know very well the questions. We don't know really what happened in Spain. We can only speculate, and in the next month we will have the results of the investigations that they are doing. And it's always too easy to blame the others for something that happened. What I think we can learn from this situation is that we must take care very seriously of the understanding of the evolution of the system. Try not to be fixed to the idea that even things are changing, there is no need to change nothing. Because this is, of course, you know, the electric and the energetic system is quite conservative and have a twofold approach. The first one is the engineering approach of the 2 times. I mean, every time you do something, you do it 2 times more because so you are safe. But if you try to use this kind of approach, expenses increase dramatically. And the other thing is not to bother of things that are changing. And you have the illusion that you are sparing money, but at the end of the day, something happens that reminds you that it probably is better to follow. So I don't want to say that we in Italy did better or not. I say that we in Italy tried to be very pragmatic on the evolution of the system, tried to introduce as much as automation as was possible even in the past. When the large plants like Brindisi, for example, went out of services for the decisions and for the market situations in 2020, 2019, in that period we pushed a lot Terna in order to build up a lot of synchronous compensator in order to balance the area of Puglia and Basilicata and Molise, which are critical from the point of view of the stability of the system, because we have a lot of renewable generation in Puglia moving to the north, and so the stabilization granted by the large plants of Brindisi that have 4 groups of 600 megawatt, more or less, with all the stability that you can induce with the inertia of the rotating parts. It's relevant. And so we focused specifically in order to promote the investments in that area with asynchronous compensators and other. Because, I mean, the technology in order to follow the evolution of the system exists. For example, even I remember it was quite blamed, some decision taken by the technical board of say to introduce the power generator inverters that are able to stabilize the grid, giving the signal of stabilization for the frequency, which seems were a little bit more lacking in Spain. These are also all solutions that you can introduce in order to follow the evolution of the system. You must take care of it. You must charge the responsibilities that this costs. And this because, for example, inertia came for free in the past. I mean, when you were operating a large rotating plant, the inertia is a free gift from the system. And when you have instead to pay for the inertia because you have to have the synthetic inertia from the inverters or from other solutions, you have to pay for it. So it's, and of course, the first thing is that they blame you because you are introducing new costs in the system. But what is important is to explain that these are not new costs just for the understanding of increasing the bill of turn, but it's because you try to have a system that is as stable as possible. So I think this is really, really important to understand that the system is changing even quite fast, that we have introduced a lot of automation, that we have to be more safe from the cybersecurity point of view, because even though security by shock traction, which is typical of the energetic system, is changing, that inertia is an issue. And so, I mean, it's a long work that you have to deal with. This is the lesson that I think we have to learn, even because everybody concentrates on the apagon. I prefer the Spanish word because blackout seems a little bit too scaring. But apart from the jokes, everybody focuses on this, but don't forget that in January 21, if I'm not wrong, but I mean, it doesn't change much. We had a major failure in Slovenia because of a system failure that was blocked by the Austrian-Italian system in order to avoid the propagation in Europe. It was a big failure, but the system reacted very well. We learned the lesson of 23. And so this is important. I mean, the other topic which is relevant is the interconnection between the countries. To develop and build up the capacity of interconnections in order to react quickly. I mean, you know, the poor interconnection of Spain, this is a point that we can for sure say. I mean, the poor interconnection between France and Spain was safe for avoiding the propagation of the blackout to France mainly, but at the same time was the final cut for the stability of Spain, because if they would add some more interconnection and some more capability to stabilize locally the grid, probably they would not experience such a large event.
There is an intense debate in Europe on the possible change in the path for energy consumption, and that is the consequence of the introduction of artificial intelligent devices and development of new data centers. How does ARERA see that evolution? How does ARERA see the necessity to continue incentivizing the strengthening of the energy infrastructure to cope with hopefully higher energy demand?
Well, I think that we have a threefold approach to this. I mean, the first one is, of course, to collect energy, distributed energy generation. This is the first point in order to invest in the transmission grid, in the distribution grid. Probably the gray area between distribution and transmission are increasingly difficult to determine, because we have some area in which to strengthen the capability of the distribution to collect dispersed generation is probably relevant, and you can avoid to think about only the large transmission lines. You can somehow integrate better this integration between DSO and TSO. The second point is for sure the increasing request of generation. I don't know the numbers. I mean, there are these numbers running around about 600 terawatt hours in the 2030, 2050. I don't know if we can reach such a high level of generation. Don't forget that when we did these same evaluations in 2021, there was an expectation in 2020 to have something around 500 terawatt hours of production. At that point, there was 2008, the great economical crisis. The generation fell down to 300, and more or less we are at that number since then. I mean, I don't know today, but we are around 330, 340, something like that. And so for sure we will experience an increase because the electrification process is gaining momentum. I don't know if the expectations of the electric mobility, which was one of the main drivers to increase generation, will maintain the curve. For sure, the increase related to the data processing and AI, let's put in this very broad definition, could give a significant push to the energy demand. So let's say that we can put something in the middle between these two, this level. In any case, we need a lot of investments in order to collect. A good point of the AI infrastructure is that it's characterized by very flat profile of consumptions, because this is one of the typical things. You have the data centers that are more or less stable in their energetic demand. There is this relevant issue that was a little bit a surprise for me, which you needed to locate the data center very close to the consumption centers. I expected that it was quite indifferent where you are going to put the location. So this is an opportunity, of course, because like in Milan, you have a great demand, you have a great pressure, so it's reasonable that you are going to place, even if you have a relatively higher energy cost, you are placing a relevant number of these infrastructures. And so this is a positive thing for the stability of the system, because to have introduced some very stable, flat profile in the energy demand, this is useful in order to stabilize the system as a whole. I think this could be also a kind of opportunity for the generators, because of course there will be a high pressure on the renewable demand, but also for the conventional generation this could be an opportunity. I don't know if the nuclear would be available in a short time, or in such a short time, to support this kind of, but we have in any case a good support from the close France in order to import the needed power.
The government approved at the beginning of the year the budget for 2025, and there are several articles dedicated to the possible extension of the electricity distribution concessions in exchange for an upfront payment that then is going to be included into the regulatory asset base. ARERA has published a consultation document on that recently. So can you share with us the latest views of ARERA on how the calculation of that upfront payment should be done, and the possible implications for the system and for consumers as well?
Well, for the system, it's of course a matter of debate. I mean, there are somebody thinking that it's better to enter in the auction system with the bidding for changing the. And I remind that the previous law, that was the Bersani one, thought about the splitting of the system in Italy in, not wrong, at least four areas. And we are in a moment in which the rate of investments in the grid is dramatically increasing. This is quite clear. So I can understand, maybe I cannot share, but I can understand the decision to extend the concession in order not to interfere with a huge momentum in the investments. I think that in the consultancy document we pointed out quite clearly our understanding of the situation and our caveat to the evolution, and I would summarize in this way. The first one is that the law asks for new strategic plans for the distribution. I would say that we did already a good work in asking to the distributors to develop new plans in order to take care of the things that I was discussing before. I mean, the need to collect more dispersed generation and resilience of the system, which is the other major point. I mean, to react to the pressures coming from the climate change, and you need to be able to have a kind of investments which are not so easily evaluated with a cost-benefit analysis, because the balance between the cost and the benefits is not such clear, because you have to introduce the stochastic evolution of the system, of the pressure coming from the environment. But we, I think, identified since 5 or 6 years a way to compute and evaluate this kind of investment, so that in the plans now 30–40% of the investments are targeted with this resilience ticket, which changes a bit the evolution of the cost-benefit analysis. I think that this increased significantly the investments and the capability of the investments of the company. But in any case, I understand that you want to delay this, you want to introduce a new effort. What is relevant from our side is that this new effort is completely compatible with the ordinary plans that you are discussing, because there is a time problem. I mean, if you decide now relevant investment for the next 10 years, and I would like to understand who is able to prepare such kind of plans on such a long term, because things are changing so dramatically and so quickly that it's really exposed to the risk that what seems reasonable today is completely out of scope in the next 5 years. So the ordinary approach for the regulation is that you have a 5-plan rolling, in which the distributors present these plans time over time, and so they can accommodate and adapt to changing things. So if you have a strategic new plan, exceptional plan that is made at T0, and you have a view plus 10 years, you have to be able to manage things that at a certain point the two plans interact, and the ordinary one overcomes the strategic long-term plan. Otherwise, you risk to have a situation in which the decisions are completely out of scope and hold. So this is our first caveat. The second one, of course, is regarding this new thing of the need to pay for the concession, or to pay for the extension of the concession. Technically, the law says that they have to pay an amount of money in order to extend the concession period, which is a decision that can be taken, not very efficient from the point of view of the final consumers, but at the end of the day, of course, this kind of money comes back to the energy bills, to the electric bills. But I think this is a point. I mean, if you want to introduce this kind of payment, you should avoid to directly put it on the electric bill of the final consumers. So our request, our suggestion, and our suggestion to the ministry that at the end of the day will be responsible for the decree in order to practically introduce this decision in the system, is to avoid, or to reduce, or better to avoid completely this kind of extra money put on the electric bill. And there is, of course, another relevant thing, which is the request that the investment, the money paid for this extension of the period are remunerated with the same interest rates that are granted for the real physical investments. I think that this interplay between the two kinds of investments is not good. It's not good in general, because I prefer to maintain the money on the real grid investments and not on the payment of a bill. I mean, if you have a fixed amount of money that you can, I mean, we are talking already of real great numbers in the investments. We are talking of billions in the next year from all the distributors in order to increase the strength and then strengthen the energy grid. If you move money from this to a bill in order to extend the concession, you are moving away money from the real investments in the grid. I prefer to maintain the money there.
Maybe a final question for you on the design of the energy system in Italy of the future. So after your 7-year mandate, there is a legacy for the next board of ARERA that probably is going to include the redefinition of the energy system, including things that maybe are out of the scope of ARERA, but is still interesting for the design of the energy system in Italy, including possible development of new nuclear generation. I'm interested in your opinion on that. And something that has to do with your job, the possible impact on the system of new battery system. There is an ongoing consultation on that, and something that may be having an impact also at a European level due to the significant introduction of new renewable energies.
Well, I think start from the batteries. I think that the storage systems are now a fundamental part, I mean, of the development system. You can try to stabilize dynamically with the smart solutions, with the smart grids, with all the things that you can put in place in order to, at the time, balance the system. But at a certain level, you need to time shift the power generation. I mean, this is unavoidable. You can do it on a larger scale with the pumping system, hydroelectric pumping system, which at the end of the day I like much, and of course with electrochemical system that can also give some other services, not only time shift, which is the most relevant. I think that the decision taken here in Italy about this max auction and all the regulation that is developing on electrochemical storage is a good balance in order to squeeze out from every euro that they are putting in these devices, which are still a little bit expensive, the maximum of the services that you can grant to the balance of the system. Because you avoid to fix them only on a subset of services, but try to leave to the operators the capability and the opportunity to exploit all the services that are available. But I think also that the cost curve of these solutions will decrease, will continue in this decrease. Of course, they will become more and more asymptotic because the first decrease in the technological evolution is always very dramatic. I remember that we moved from thousands of euro per megawatt to hundreds of euro per megawatt where we are today. And so we will decrease again. We will probably change also even some technologies because I understand that the lithium technology is very fancy because you can change it on every size scale, but I think that we will also specialize in the future that the stable storage system for land application could be diverse from those used in the mobility sector. And so I think things will move on from this point of view. And so we will see what will happen in September with the last quarter of 2025 with the first auctions. I think that there will be a good surprise from the point of view of the participation, which I expect will turn out in a reasonable price of the things. I think this is a point that we probably need to deal a little bit more. I mean, we are discussing a lot of instruments, CFD, PPAs, auctions with public counterparts, and so on. We always forget a point. All these instruments should have in the back a reasonable quantity of offers in order to avoid some concentration or lack of participants. So this is, I mean, even the fair, I don't fair different size. That we had in the past, you probably remember that we have auctions in 2018, 19, so which went practically empty because of the lack of authorization, because of the lack of investors and so on. So this is the major risk that we should avoid. I mean, you can develop a lot of nice instruments, but if you're not able to build up the people that is going to compete for that instruments, that's not, so you have to take care of both. So we have not much time, just for a small quote on the nuclear. As I told yesterday during the presentation of the government, I think it was a good opportunity that the discussion on this topic came back to Italy. I think that industrial developed and technologically advanced country like Italy cannot avoid to work with all the technologies available. Innovation is going to take place also in this field. We hope dramatically, which would mean that we have really a new source that is able to give answers compatible with the environment. But it's a long journey that you have. I mean, it's like in the mountains. When you start a new path, you have to do the first work. So we did the first work, it's good, and now we have to maintain this kind of evolution, having very clear that the solution from this path will not be available in a short time. They will be available in the next, be optimistic, say 10 years, be more pragmatic, say 20 years. It's important to develop it, to work on that, to have connections, to have this relationship with the European, to have connection with those that are able to do this professionally, like in France, in the US as well. So it's important to have the development. But at the same time, we need not to lose the focus on what we are doing now, how we can manage the evolution of the gas infrastructure, we can manage the evolution of the investments in renewables, how we can give real pragmatic answers to the problems now, and then we will have other solutions. Thank you.
Fantastic. So many thanks to President Besseghini for the excellent.
Thank you. And also, thank you.